Okay, so the last thing we're going to cover for the week one is the rotate tool. And this is probably the trickiest of all the tools that we'll get into this week. So it's probably going to take the most amount of practice. And the reason it's a little different is because instead of having to do instead of having to do 2 clicks, this is actually a 3-click movement, and it's a little trickier because you're also dealing with all 3 axes at the same time. So what I've done is I've created a one group. This is not two separate. This is not two separate shapes. This is one group. So if I go to my select tool and click on this, I can see that it's actually just one solid shape that I've made, and I've made it a little bit asymmetrical so that it's a little more obvious as I'm rotating. So to get this started, I select the shape that I've created, and I go to my rotate tool, which is right under the move tool. It's basically this like system of arrows chasing each other. Click on that. What I get when I bring this rotate tool out, and if I'm just putting it on the floor, is I get what looks kind of like a compass of sorts. So if I start moving this around on this shape that I've selected, you'll notice that it changes color based on what face I have it on. And the reason for that is that each of these faces is oriented along a different axis. I wouldn't worry so much about what each color means. You'll start to realize that as you get a little more into it. They're basically, if I'm along the green axis like this, and I click on this face. Let's just click right on the face. So I'm going to click on this face. Now, I've basically just stuck a pin through this face at this point, and that pin is going along the green axis all the way through. So imagine that I've stuck a big rod through this. What it's going to ask for next is it's going to ask for the next reference point. So if I just pull along that red axis and click again, I am now going to start moving around that circle, and what it's doing is it's rotating around that pin that I just stuck into it. So the second click is getting that rotation started. The third click is going to be finalizing it. And you'll also notice that along this, if I start to get kind of close to these little tick points, you'll see that there's these little angle references. And in the bottom corner, I've got what those references are. So there's 90, 75, 60, 45, and so on. So I can start rotating this in whichever direction I want, this way or that way. And then my third click is going to be what click finalizes that rotation. So if I do the same thing this time on this face with the blue activated, I can pull this, I click once to get that point started, and let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit on that, pan a little bit. Again, this is kind of what we covered a couple videos ago, where once I start a movement, I can still navigate while doing it, then hit escape. So see, I've stuck a pin straight down through this face along the blue axis. I click again out in space along the red or the green, and start to move my mouse around. So that's click 2, and now I'm rotating this around this point. Okay. Now I click to finalize it. Let's say I want to do a 45-degree rotate. Enter. So I've just rotated it 45 degrees. Now you'll notice that if I put my compass, my rotate tool, on any of these faces, it's black. And the reason it's black is because it's not referencing any particular axis anymore, because these faces are now not along any of those axes. Now they're along just the axis upon which they're along, which is, any axis other than the red, the blue, or the green. So if I want to get to if I'm trying to rotate something at a corner point, and it keeps toggling from corner to corner, it doesn't really quite know where I'm going. If I hold, let's say I want to rotate this shape from this point, and I want to rotate it along the blue, but I can't quite seem to capture the blue when I'm there, because it's a corner, so it doesn't know whether it wants me to do this face, or this face. If I move to another spot on this surface and hold the shift key down, I have now just forced it, wherever I go, to rotate using that blue axis. So if I click from this point, once I've held the shift down, and then click again, I've created a rotation at that point and that point alone. I'm going to hit escape. I'm also going to hit Control Z a few times so that I'm back to where I was. And I want to show you that if I zoom out and pan over a little bit, I can also rotate, using the rotate tool, from a reference point, let's say out here. And we don't really have anything out here, but let's, for the sake of argument, pretend that we know that at this point is where we want to reference. So I've just clicked once on that point while this object is selected. Now if I pull out and click again along the red axis, I'm now rotating this object around that reference point. I can hit my copy button and produce a copy of this, and let's say 90 degrees, enter, and I can do times 2, enter, and let's do a zoom extends. And now I've basically just created an array. I've copied around this one point, and I've created 2 additional copies of this shape using this as a reference point. So I'm going to cover the rotate tool quite a bit as we use it more and more. This is really just a quick, brief introduction. We're not going to use the rotate that much in the homework, and I'm going to show you again. I'm going to go over the homework this week and show you step by step how to do it. So this is a really quick introduction. I just want you to get a little comfortable with it. I want you to come to me with any questions you have about it. I'm sure you will, because this is the one that in my experience, has given most students the most trouble, because this is where it really pushes you to start thinking in 3 dimensions, and you have to really be focused on what your initial starting point is, what axis you're rotating along, and you have to click 3 times instead of 2. So get a little comfortable with rotate, and that should cover us for the week as far as all the new tools I'm going to introduce. I'm going to walk you through the homework, so stay tuned. Once you're comfortable with all of these tools, you can try to attempt the homework and watch that video.